Welcome to TheTechCove. Here's Sean.
Hey guys, we're going to cover some Bluetooth commands today. Fun. Why? Well, I just recently got a Bluetooth keyboard, and a buddy of mine, Scott Davard, is going to show us a few commands and things to get us used to that. Okay, it's for me. What the hell? An app for transit, just for show on the go. So, away we go.
Bluetooth keyboards with voiceover on iOS. So I will go over some general information about Bluetooth keyboards, orientation to most keyboards, not all, pairing, some general navigation commands, and also a few concepts related to voiceover. So we'll start with a general introduction / general information about Bluetooth keyboards and why you might like to use them. Many people find that they are productive enough with the touchscreen, and that's totally fine if that's your preference, but you may find that using a Bluetooth keyboard really increases your productivity at a really nominal price. I use a Bluetooth keyboard a lot of the time when I'm in an environment where I can sit down, for example, and go through my email or respond to text messages. I find it's a much quicker process to type on the keyboard than it is to use the touchscreen, or in a lot of situations where I get into, say, for example, on public transit, I don't want to sit there and dictate and have everybody hear what I'm saying, so I simply use my Bluetooth keyboard. A lot of you out there may be saying, but Scott, you use Bluetooth with your Braille display all the time. Why would you need to use a keyboard when you have a Braille display? And that's a legitimate question. The answer is that sometimes there are just things that you can accomplish much more quickly on a Bluetooth keyboard than you can a Braille display, simply because the Braille display doesn't have an equivalent to whatever command you're trying to enter. I'll talk a little bit about that actually throughout the series of podcasts about things that you can't do on the Braille display that you can do on the Bluetooth keyboard. A general orientation to Bluetooth keyboards, and I do say general because there are exceptions to the rule, just like any rule that you have in life. Bluetooth keyboards are no exception. When you get a Bluetooth keyboard that you can pair with your iDevice, you'll notice that many of the keys are set in the QWERTY format. The biggest difference is typically on the bottom row of keys. You have from left to right. Again, this is a general rule, and we'll talk about how to determine if the keys on your keyboard are the same as what we're using here. On that bottom row, from left to right, to the left of the spacebar, there are 4 keys. They are, from left to right, Function, Control, Options, and Command. These keys will be very important as we go through the process of using Bluetooth keyboards with VoiceOver. But if you're not really sure which is which, or if you prefer to use one key instead of 2 and you're moving around the screen, we'll go through a way to do that as well. For this demonstration, I'm using an iPod 6 running iOS 9.2.1, and this particular demonstration anyway, I'm going to be using the Apple wireless Bluetooth keyboard. And while I personally have a Logitech K380 that I prefer to use, it does have some limitations to it. I'll kind of talk a little bit about those, but not really, since it's so specific to one model of keyboard or a line of keyboards from Logitech. I decided to use the Apple wireless keyboard because it's a very similar experience to another popular keyboard on the market, the Amazon Basics Bluetooth keyboard. And there are a lot of others that are very similar in nature, so I'll use that for this particular demonstration. To pair a Bluetooth keyboard, it's pretty straightforward. The first thing you need to do is go into Bluetooth settings. I'll go ahead and launch that right now with Siri. Open settings for Bluetooth.
Here is the setting for Bluetooth. Settings.
We're in the Bluetooth menu, and to find this device, I, of course, will need to flick across, and if Bluetooth isn't currently turned on, you'll obviously need to do that. It's kind of hard to use a Bluetooth device if you don't have Bluetooth turned on. Once you select that device, you'll need to enter a code Sometimes. Some keyboards don't have this. It'll just automatically pair as soon as you select it. Also, for some reason, with iOS 9.2.1, because this keyboard, even though I have forgotten it, has been paired with this device before, it's not actually going to make me find it in the menu. All I need to do is put it in discoverable mode, and to do that on the Apple wireless keyboard, the first generation, you just press and hold the button on the right side.
Bluetooth pairing request.
There it goes.
Enter the code 7433 on Laven CIA Franks' keyboard, followed by the return or enter key.
7433, enter.
Bluetooth. Settings. Back button.
And now I am connected. I did want to say a couple of things about pairing, though. If you're on an Apple wireless keyboard that hasn't ever been paired, you can just turn it on and it will automatically be in discoverable mode. Of course, with the new Bluetooth keyboard, there's a switch that you turn on, but I'm using the older model, so I had to press the button. But with the Amazon Basics keyboard, for example, there's actually a button that you need to press to make it go into discoverable mode. You'll find that on the back side of the Amazon Basics keyboard. The Logitech series, since you can have multiple things paired at the same time and switch between channels, you have to select a channel that's empty, and that would put it in discoverable mode. And you can do that by pressing and holding the F1, 2, or 3 keys, depending on which channel you want that device on, and you will then be able to pair. And I believe there's no authentication code required. So we are now paired to my iPod, and I can begin moving around the screen by pressing the right arrow.
Now discoverable as Scott's iPod.
And if I use the left arrow,
Bluetooth on.
We move backwards. Pretty simple and straightforward. If you're pressing your left and right arrows, now that things are paired and you're finding that your keyboard is not actually moving the voiceover cursor, the likely culprit of that is that you do not have QuickNav turned on. Some of you may be out there asking, well, what the heck is QuickNav? To explain that, I'm first going to back up a little bit and explain a different concept, and that is the voiceover keys. You remember earlier I talked about the control and options keys, which are typically the middle two keys left of the space bar. In order to move voiceover, you have to, if you're not using QuickNav, if QuickNav is disabled, you need to press and hold the voiceover keys, or VO keys, or key, and do that in conjunction with whatever command you want to use. For example, right arrow, left arrow, or a lot of the commands that we're going to discuss shortly. With QuickNav turned on, you don't have to do that. For example, I have QuickNav enabled right now, so I can just hit my right arrow.
Break. Laven CIA. More info. Laven CIA Franks' keyboard. Button.
And it works just fine. But if I turn QuickNav off by pressing the left and right arrow keys together,
QuickNav off.
I'm hitting my right arrow, my up arrow, nothing is happening. So to use QuickNav mode, I can turn it back on by pressing the left and right arrow again.
QuickNav on. Other device in progress. Heading.
There we go. And you get the point. I have noticed in later versions of iOS that sometimes when you press the left and right arrow keys together, the status will not change, but VoiceOver will actually report it accurately. So say, for example, when hitting left and right arrow, if you have QuickNav off, it'll say QuickNav off again, and that's actually what's happening. You can press your left and right arrow and nothing. If that happens to you, just hit your left and right arrow keys together yet another time, and QuickNav should change to whatever you want it set to. We did talk a little bit about how the control and options keys may not necessarily be located where I had just described, and there's actually a way around that. In fact, some keyboards will not recognize the control and options keys being pressed together. If that's the case, or if you're someone who doesn't like to press more keys than are necessary, Apple has given us the ability with iOS 9 to, instead of having you press Control and Options at the same time, along with the keyboard combination you want, you can actually use just the caps lock key, which is pretty universally located between the Shift and Tab on the left side of your keyboard. To set this up, we have to go into the voiceover settings, which I will do now by telling Siri to do it, because I enjoy telling things what to do. Open the settings for voiceover.
Voiceover. Accessibility. Back button.
So what I'm looking for is toward the bottom. I'm actually going to use a Bluetooth keyboard command to do this. Now, if you're not able to find your control key, you can always use the touchscreen to get here. But I am going to use Control down arrow to get to the very end.
Double tap timeout 0.25s. Button.
Then I'm going to hit my left arrow a few times.
Large cursor. Navigate. Always speak. Modifier keys all. Button.
And you heard there it said modifier keys all. To go into an option using the Bluetooth keyboard, you can press the up and down arrow keys together, assuming you have Quick Nav enabled. You can also double tap on the touchscreen, of course. And if you do not have Quick Nav turned on, you would need to press the VO key and spacebar. But I have Quick Nav enabled. If I didn't, I could use the left and right arrow keys to enable it. So go ahead and press up and down arrow keys together.
Modifier keys. Heading. Selected. Control plus Option.
That's the original thing that you have. You can enable both. That's why it said all, which is what I have.
Selected. Caps lock.
And there is the caps lock key.
Choose the modifier keys that must be pressed on a hardware keyboard to activate voiceover key commands.
There is one other voiceover setting that I want to show you, and that is typing feedback. To go back out of a menu, I can do the two-finger scrub, of course, on the touchscreen, but I'm actually going to stop telling you the voiceover gesture equivalent because I'm not going to be using it anymore. I'm actually setting my iPod down on the table. And for the remainder of this podcast, I am going to actually be only using my keyboard. To go back in a menu, such as this, I can press the Escape key, which also acts as the two-finger scrub.
Voiceover. Accessibility. Voiceover. Heading. Voiceover. Voiceover. Tap one. Double. Swipe. Voice. Speak. Speaking. Use pitch change. Use sound effect. Speech. Button. Braille. Button. Rotor. Button. Typing style. Touch typing. Phonetic feedback. Phonetics. Typing feedback. Button.
There it is. Again, up and down arrows.
Typing feedback. Voiceover. Back button. Typing feedback. Heading. Software keyboards. Heading.
Software keyboard is not what we're looking for, but if you're using a touchscreen, you can change the different options and what kind of speech feedback you would like to have.
Nothing. Selected. Characters. Words. Characters and words.
Those are your options. We'll keep moving to the right.
Hardware keyboards. Heading.
This is what we're looking for because we are using a hardware keyboard.
Nothing. Characters. Selected. Words. Characters and words.
So you can pick from whatever option you want in those. I have mine set to words because I just find typing and having every character announced to be a bit obnoxious. But if you want to do that, go ahead and press your up and down arrows on the choice that best suits you. We talked a bit before about the voiceover modifier key. We have now set that, so you can use Control and Options if you wish, or you can use Caps Lock key, whatever you're more comfortable with. I tend to use the Caps Lock key because, again, it is kind of more universal. There's no real issue about where in the heck those Control and Options keys are, but again, it's still a good idea to know where they are. If I want to find out what keyboard commands do what, to some extent, I can do this. And this is the only other time I'm going to mention a gesture on the iDevice, and that is a 4-finger double tap.
Starting help. To stop help, perform a 4-finger double tap or 2-finger scrub, or press Escape on the keyboard.
Very helpful. And now, if I really want to know what the heck those keys are, to the left of my space bar. Function doesn't say anything, I just pressed it.
Control.
Control does say control, and that's an important one, because if you want to shut up speech, that's how you would do it.
Option. Command.
So on this keyboard, I just went left to right. It announced Control Options Command from left to right, and that is indeed what we have. If you want to try some commands, you can also do that. For example, I'll hit VoiceOver H.
H activates the home button.
That's exactly what that keyboard command does. And to get out of here, like VoiceOver had indicated, I can press the Escape key.
VoiceOver. Typing feedback. Button.
And I'm returned to the VoiceOver menu. To go to the home screen, VO with the letter H.
Home.
And we're now on the home screen. Of course, with iOS 9.2, we have this bug where you're just not really landed in any place. It's sort of random. We're kind of up in the status bar, so if I hit my right arrow...
3 of 3 Wi-Fi messages.
And then escape, I am back now on my home screen, and I can use my left and right arrow to move around. Now I want to talk about the function keys. The function keys, of course, are the top row of keys on most keyboards. Not every keyboard has them, but I'd say 99% of them do. And unfortunately, depending on the keyboard, VoiceOver Help will not tell you what those function keys do. But you can kind of get a sense for what they do by pressing them. So say, for example, I'll choose F2.
48% brightness. 54% brightness.
And that increases the brightness. I'm not a very bright person, so I like my screen dark. I guess that makes me a dark person. I'll go ahead and hit F1.
48, 42, 35, 29, 23, 17, 10%, 4%, 0% brightness.
And now it's as bright as I am. Looking at some of the other function keys, and again, really the best way to do this is going to be to press them and kind of figure out what they do. For example, my Logitech K380 keyboard, F1 through F3, will change you between the Bluetooth channels when you press them. So, unfortunately, screen brightness is not an option there on that particular keyboard. Even if you hit function with the F1 or F2 keys, it doesn't always work. Let's take a look at a few others. If I press F8...
Hey, Nakamura, can we go thrift shopping?
It plays the last track that I was playing, which is Thrift Shop. And if you didn't feel like popping some tags and you didn't have $20 in your pocket, which they'll sing about here shortly, you could press F7 and that would take you to the previous track.
Hey, Nakamura, can we
Just like a CD player, you actually have to press it twice to go to the previous track.
Hey,
So now I can press the F8 key, and that will make it be quiet. I'll press F8 again. It's still rocking out, but it just muted the audio. If I hit F9,
hey, Nakamura,
we're back to
can we go
that
thrift
track.
shopping?
F10 mutes everything. I'm pressing keys on the keyboard, nothing's happening. I'll hit F10 again. If I hit F11, that decreases the volume. F12 increases it. And again, F8 stops it, which is important. Those are pretty much the ones we just went through with the moving around of tracks. Those are pretty much a standard keyboard feature. Depending on the keyboard you're running, you may actually have to hit the function key in conjunction with the F key that you want to make it happen. But with the Apple Wireless keyboard and also Amazon Basics keyboards, you don't have to do that. There are, of course, commands that you can use to move around the screen. Again, we talked about left and right arrow, but you can also bring up the control center. And you can do that by pressing VO function down arrow.
Control center. Airplane mode. Off.
Hit escape to get out.
Messages.
VO function up arrow will take you to the notification center.
Notification. Selected. Today. Button. 1 of 2.
Again, escape will get us out.
Messages.
VO with function and right arrow does nothing. And I did that on purpose, actually. I know I didn't do anything, but if you do press commands that don't have any real keyboard equivalent. It'll just make that dunk noise. And you're really not going to hurt anything by playing around, so feel free to do that, or go into the help menu if you're feeling more comfortable and you want to know exactly what it does that we covered here a few minutes ago. You can do that as well. Options, and again, that would be on most keyboards the second key to the left of the space bar. At right arrow,
Page 2 of 9. Nebulas.
takes you to the next page. The reverse of that, options left arrow,
Page 1 of 9. Messages.
will take you to the previous page of your home screen. If you want to go to the last item on the screen, you can hit Control down arrow.
Dock. Dropbox.
Dropbox is the icon located in the lower right corner of my screen. Control up arrow
Messages.
takes you to the upper left corner of the screen. There may be situations where something you want is in the middle of the screen. It's not closer to the top or the bottom, and you're like, well, I'm going to have to arrow around a bunch anyway. Not necessarily. There's another command that you can use, and that is the VO key with the letter F,
Enter search text.
and type mail.
Dock. Mail. 30 unread emails.
It takes me directly to the mail icon, which is down in the dock. It's the middle option in the bottom. I can then, of course, press up and down arrow to activate it. Again, up and down arrow will actually allow you to activate whatever item VoiceOver has focus on. I'll go ahead and do that just to show you.
Mail. Search field. Inbox. Unread.
I hit Control to shut it up. And again, if I want to go back to my home screen, I can press the VO key with the letter H.
Home.
I'm in the status bar, have to hit right arrow
3 of 3 Wi-Fi bars. Messages.
and escape, and that will take me back to my home screen. If I am on an iPhone 6S or 6S Plus, which I am not currently, but if I was, I can press VO, Shift, and the letter F, and that will perform a 3D touch on the app that I'm currently sitting on. Or if I'm in the Mail application, it will allow me to peek and pop. We'll cover that a little bit more in another podcast, since it will be more relevant to apps and things when we get into those. There are a lot of other commands that you can do. For example, if you want to mute speech, you can do that with VO and the letter S.
Speech off.
Say, for example, you're typing an email and you don't want people to hear what you're typing. You might want to turn speech off. Or, of course, if you have a braille display, that would be another reason to do it. I'll turn it back on. Same command, VO and S.
Speech on.
VO Shift and the letter S will toggle your screen curtain.
Screen curtain off. Screen curtain on.
Another useful sort of set of commands, and this is actually going to segue into what we'll cover next time. It'll be a good sort of stopping point for the moment. But I'm going to introduce it as a concept, is the ability to set options directly with VoiceOver as they relate to, some of them the keyboard, some of them not so much, but it allows you to move around to different options. So to do that, I can press VO and the command key, and we'll use the right arrow, but you could cycle through with the left arrow as well.
Speech rate.
Speech rate is an option. Now I can adjust that by pressing the up or down arrow. I'll press up arrow.
61%.
Down arrow.
56%.
You get the idea. And for all of the following options, up and down arrow will actually change them.
Punctuation. Typing echo. Sounds. Use phonetics. Use pitch. Audio ducking. Volume. Speech rate.
And those are all of the options. While the commands I just showed you will allow you to move through various settings in the rotor, you can also move through all of the rotor options that you have enabled in VoiceOver. You can do that by pressing the up and right arrows together, or the up arrow and left arrow. The up arrow and right arrow is the equivalent to moving to the next rotor option to the right, and the up arrow and left arrow will move you to the next option to the left. I'll go ahead and press up arrow and right arrow now.
Containers. Headings. Vertical navigation. Audio ducking. Language. Characters.
Now we're on characters, so if I press down arrow while I'm on characters,
Sierra, Alpha, Foxtrot, Alpha, Romeo, India.
I have my character feedback set to phonetics. So there we are on Safari, and if I hit up arrow,
India, Romeo, Alpha.
it moves to the previous element type that you have the rotor set to. I think that's a good place to stop. The next one will be covering editing text. There will also be one on using Safari, most likely mail, and we'll see how things go from there. scottdavert@gmail.com is the email address. That's SCOTTDAVERT@gmail.com. You can also follow me on Twitter. My username there is Scott Davert, SCOTTDAVERT. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.
Hey, Justin, what's up?
I'm just looking at blind resources on the computer here, Sean. There aren't hardly any.
Yes, there are. Living Blind Blog.
It says their site's been changed. Something about they're going through different changes. I don't understand. They were okay.
Yeah, but they're going to get better, duh. I mean, with me on the staff.
You, Sean?
Yes, me. Yes, me.
It doesn't say anything about that coming.
That's why it's going to be a coming soon surprise. Of course, I'll be able to post more things, and I'm gonna ask a few of my blind friends to help. So, whether you're gay, straight, parent, single, or just curious about cooking, which is kind of cool. So, there's nothing to worry about. Living Blind Blog will be back soon, very soon, with all new changes that are great. Even some live feed podcasts. So, don't worry your little head. Just enjoy what you can find right now. Because things can only get better from this point.
Oh, that sounds cool, Sean. It's like a commercial.
The Living Blind Blog.
Wow, the Living Blind Blog, huh? Okay, now here's some accessibility updates from Netflix. Says here they got it together. Well, we'll see.
Actually, we'll hear about it from
Jamie Pauls. I'd like to show you some accessibility improvements in the latest version of Netflix, version 8, as I record this. For anyone who may not know, Netflix is a streaming service that allows you to watch movies and television shows. And I believe my plan right now in the United States is $8.99 a month. I know those are changing a bit, and so I'm not sure what you might pay, and depending on what part of the world you live in. There are some things that still need some work, but by and large, there have been some major improvements. I hope that one of these days we will be able to discard this podcast and put up a new one, because there have been more improvements and some of my comments will be not valid anymore. This is not by any means going to be an exhaustive overview of the app at all. This is just going to highlight a few things that I think are worth noting, worth taking a look at. So I'm now sitting on Netflix on my home screen. I'm going to double tap to open it.
Netflix Browse button.
And we find a nice Browse button. If we go in here,
Continue watching criminal and continue watching full Browse button.
Lost focus there for a second. Let me do that again.
Browse. Switch profiles button.
That was my fault, by the way, not the app's. So switch profile, flick right.
Selected home button.
Right again.
TV shows button. Action and adventure button. Anime button. Children and family movies, comedies, document, drama, heart, thriller account button.
So, lots of categories. I don't know of a way to find audio description or titles with audio description at this time. If there is a way, I have not been able to find it. How to get back to the home screen? Kind of an odd little way things are labeled here with voiceover.
Switch profiles button.
I've gone to the top of the screen. I'm going to flick right.
Selected. Home button.
So it says selected home button, but obviously we're in this browse screen. But if we double tap the home, selected home button.
Selected. Home. House of Cards button.
We actually switch to the screen that we want to be on, the home screen. Interestingly, I've played with this several times getting ready for this podcast. That is the first time VoiceOver has given me feedback that I had actually switched screens. Most of the time, I have just had to explore to determine whether or not that was the case. Let's go ahead and make sure I'm at the top of the screen.
Browse button. Browse button.
And I am. Let's move our actions rotor
Language
to headings.
Headings.
And we're going to flick down.
Continue watching for Jamie. Heading.
That's a very handy thing in Netflix. If you're watching something, you can continue. And if I flick right,
continue watching Criminal Minds. Double tap to play button.
That's what I've been watching is Criminal Minds. Let's do a heading, flick down.
TV dramas. Heading. Trending now. Heading. Dramas. Heading. Because you watched Scooby-Doo. Mystery Incorporated. Heading. Top picks for Jamie. Heading. Because you watched Dear Santa. Heading. Recently added. Heading.
My wife has been sharing this app with me. She now has her own profile, but many of these I have not actually watched.
Because you watched Confessions of a Prodigal Son. Heading.
In fact, most of them I have not actually.
Because you watched Criminal Minds. Heading.
Just because I'm kind of curious, let's see what Netflix thinks I might want to watch.
House M.D. button. Person of interest button.
I'm flicking right,
Display
by the
details.
way.
CSI Miami button.
Okay,
Display
very
details.
intelligent recommendations, I would say. Let's keep moving down by headings.
New releases. Heading.
Let's flick right.
Home button. Little boy button. When calls the heart button. The journey home button.
Okay, nice.
Display details.
Let's keep flicking headings down.
TV shows. Heading. Animation. Heading. Because you watched Last Ounce of Courage. Heading. Critically acclaimed movies. Heading. Because you watched Ragamuffin. Heading. My list. Heading.
My list. Let's flick right.
House of Cards button.
Okay.
Display details.
House of Cards. If I flick right again.
Flashpoint button.
Flashpoint.
Display details. In the Name of God button.
Okay.
Display details.
So we see that I do have some things on my list. Let's do a 4-finger tap.
Browse button.
To get to the top of the screen.
Browse button.
Let's flick right.
Search button. Critically acclaimed movies. Heading.
And we have a problem. We are not really at the top of the screen because that's not what should be there. If I do a 3-finger tap at the center of the screen.
Page 7 of 7. Top of screen.
I'm on page 7 of 7. That's not where I want to be. So in order to get back there, I find that I need to do a 3-finger swipe down on the screen.
Page 6 of 7. Page 5 of 7. Page 3 of 7. Page 2 of 7. Page 1 of 7. Flashpoint button. Browse search button. House of Cards button.
And
Display
in fact,
details.
now House of Cards is where I want it to be.
Continue watching for Jamie. Heading. Continue watching Criminal Minds. Double tap to play button.
Okay. I flicked right to just see, what was next in the list. Let's back up to House of Cards for a minute.
Continue House of Cards button. Display details.
Let's open up the details screen on House of Cards. Let's see what's here.
Play House of Cards button.
Okay, that's a no nonsense. Let's just jump right to what we might want to do is play House of Cards. We're going to do that in a minute. Let's flick right.
Rating 5 stars out of 5.
I've not found a way to actually interact with this screen. If I double tap it.
Rating 5 stars. Rate this title.
Rate this title. That sounds
Rate this
very
title.
promising. But nothing seems to be
Bluetooth on. Step
on this
79.
screen
Rate this title.
that VoiceOver can see. If I just double tap rate this title.
Rate this title.
Nothing seems to happen. If I double tap and hold.
Rate this title.
Nothing seems to be working for me. And in fact,
Rate this title. Rate this title.
the only way that I've found to be able to get out of this screen is to close the app and unload it from
Netflix. Double tap to
App
open.
Switcher.
App Switcher. Close Netflix. Closing Netflix. Weather. Active.
So here's hoping that that will be fixed sooner or later.
FaceTime. Kindle. ML Word. Skype. 2 new items. Netflix.
Let's open up
Double tap to
Netflix
open.
again.
Netflix. In progress. Browse button.
Let's go ahead and move right.
Search button. House of Cards button.
Let's go back into House
Display
of Cards,
details.
this details screen.
Play House of Cards button.
Let's flick right a bit.
Rating 5 stars out of 5. 2013. TVN 8. 3 seasons.
Okay.
S1 colony 1. Chapter 1.
So I had started playing this, and so
1 minute.
it's telling me that I, in fact, have started this episode.
Progress bar. 56 minutes. When the newly elected president reneges on a promise, Francis and Claire decide to sever all allegiances and
Nice synopsis.
Cast, Kevin Spacey, My List button.
And it is, you see the My List button. If I were to double tap on this, you would hear nothing. VoiceOver would say nothing at all. If I went back into My List, I would see that House of Cards is gone. It would have been removed. If I go back into this screen, double tap on My List, again, I hear nothing from VoiceOver. But if I went back into My List, I would see that it had been added. So it works, it just doesn't give you any feedback.
Share button. Episodes button.
So episodes.
Trailers and recap button. Season 1 button.
Season 1.
Play episode 1. Progress bar. 1. 56. When play episode. Progress bar. 2. 49. Francis. Play progress. Play progress bar.
So you can see all of the episodes that that you'd like to look at.
4. 40. Play progress. 5. 50. Play progress bar. 6.
Okay, we'll not belabor that point. You get the idea. Let's go to the very bottom of the screen with a 4-finger tap.
Close button.
And there is the close button that will get you out of this screen.
Close. Browse button.
Okay.
Browse button.
So you can see that works as you would hope it would.
Search button. House of Cards button. Display details.
Let's go back into House of Cards.
Play House of Cards button.
And let's in fact start playing this episode. Or continue in my case.
Landscape. Home button to the right.
Red and white letters fade in from a black background.
We did start from the beginning.
Original series.
So if you are familiar with the episode at all, you know that this is starting as it should. Let's take a look at this screen. Move to the top of it.
Back button.
Back as you would expect.
Speeding away. Then they rush towards a
Going to flick right.
Airplay button.
Airplay.
Episode list button.
Episode list. If I double tap this.
Close button.
Let's keep flicking right. I'll bring the volume up just a little bit.
Season 1. Season 2. Season 3.
Okay, so Season 1, Season 2, Season 3.
Play Episode 1. Dimmed. Image.
I can play Episode 1 is dimmed because I'm already playing it. So you can easily look at seasons and episodes in this new release. That hasn't always been the case. VoiceOver used to really lose focus, and sometimes you could find what you were looking for. Sometimes you couldn't find it at all. Sometimes you'd find it once and then never again. So this appears to be much improved. Let's go to the top of the screen.
Close button.
Let's go ahead and close this.
Close. Back button.
It picks up where it left off. Let's flick right.
Airplay button. Episode list button. Audio and subtitles options button.
Okay, audio and subtitles. Let's double tap.
Audio. Close button.
So if I keep flicking right again.
Audio heading. Subtitles heading. Selected English audio description.
So English audio description is its own language. Flick right.
Spanish. English.
Okay. Flick right again.
English CC. Spanish. Selected off.
Selected off. I'm not exactly sure what that is because it doesn't say anything. The only thing I can think of that it would be maybe the subtitles themselves. I do not have closed captioning enabled, so maybe it's just telling me that that's off.
Selected off.
I'm honestly not sure, and I don't intend to play around to find out. I don't want to jinx myself, so I'm gonna can't do a 2-finger scrub.
Close button.
But you can go to the top of the screen and close.
Close. Back button.
There's one more thing I want to show you. Let's keep going.
Audio and subtitles option. House of Cards. S1 E1. Chapter 1. Dimmed. Pause button.
Pause.
Rewind 10 seconds button.
Okay, rewind 10 seconds.
Scrub video 2%.
Now,
adjustable.
let's talk about the
Swipe up or down
scrubber.
one finger to adjust the value.
If we double tap and hold, then I can bring my finger, slide my finger down on the screen.
Moments like this.
2%. 2%. 5%. 5%. 6%. 1%. 0%.
All right, I went down and I was going
0%,
up.
0%.
Red and white
when I
letters
went
fade
up
in
on the
from a black
screen,
background.
I went back to
A Netflix
0%.
original series.
So let's do it again. Let's double tap and hold and move
0%,
down.
1%, 3%, 4%, 4%.
Let go. It's scanning to find where it needs to be. It may take it a little while.
As he meanders
Here we
through
go.
the crowd, pointing out
And I want to go back to the top again, the beginning of the episode.
4%, 1%, 0%, 0%.
Red and white letters
so that
fade
works.
in
Let's-
from a black background.
Two-finger double tap to pause this.
56, 17, dimmed. 56, 17, dimmed.
And that lets you know the length of the episode. So
Back button. Airplay button. Episode air back
we
button.
can just back out of this.
Portrait.
Okay, so to kind of summarize a little bit, there are many more controls that are available and consistently available than there have been in the past when using the Netflix app. It's a lot easier to see the synopsis of episodes and seasons. You could always do that. I think it's a little easier to get to, and it's a lot more consistent. You can definitely look at these episodes more easily. There has been some confusion, perhaps, among some on the internet about how to get out of that details screen. It's not obvious at all. You would think that there might be a back button at the top of the screen, or a two-finger or a two-finger scrub would get you out of it. But in fact, there's a close button at the bottom of the screen that I found is what you need to use to back out of that screen. However, we did look at the rating, and I didn't see a way to rate the series, nor could I get out of that screen once I had gotten into it without completely closing the app down. And also, even though adding something to a list is doable, it does work, I think there needs to be some feedback so that you know that in fact it has been added or has been removed from the list. I believe Netflix have gone a long way toward accessibility with this release. I'm excited about what's coming. I would hope that at some point it would be possible to maybe have audio description as a category, or maybe if you're a voiceover user, there would be some flag that it would recognize that maybe the sighted population wouldn't, because I can understand why people who are sighted wouldn't care to know that there's audio description. In fact, it could be confusing and someone could get something turned on that maybe they didn't intend to. So that maybe needs to be hidden a bit from the general community. But at some point, maybe there would be a way to make that doable. If you found that I have made a mistake, because this is definitely a quick overview and I have not played with the app for a long time, please let me know. Hit me up on Twitter at JamiePauls, JamiePauls. Let the folks over at Netflix know that you're pleased with the work that they've done. Thanks for the audio description. Thanks for making the app more accessible. Now, can we keep going? Let's not rest. Let's keep moving forward. And I think if we do that in a very positive, professional manner, we'll be able to make some serious progress. So, hope this is helpful, and I look forward to your feedback. Take care, everyone.
Hello, community. I'm Mike Malarsas. I'm going to show you guys around the Transit app on iOS. For those of you that use public transportation, if you haven't tried this app, I highly recommend it. I've been through probably a handful of these things now, and by far this one is my favorite, and I'm going to show you why. But before we get started, if you'll want to find out if your city is supported, go to transitapp.com, and you should be able to find all the information on it, or just look it up in your app store. That's where I found my city. All right, enough chat. Let's get started.
Transit. NOF 11,381S 1,300W.
So I know most of that meant absolutely nothing to you, but it's basically reading out street addresses. Now visually in this app, what is going on, there's a map on the screen and there's little colored dots moving around. The buses and trains, whatever there is in your area, are being shown in real time. Super great if you can see, not so great for us. But what we can do is use this app to search for a destination and find out exactly what we need to do to get there. Now keep in mind that flicking around is not the most effective way to use this app. It doesn't get along with that very well, so I highly recommend you explore by touch, and we will start things off by finding the little search field up at the top in the middle of our screen.
Search your address.
All right, there it is. Let's go ahead and double tap.
Search your address. Text field.
And as you can hear, you can type in pretty much whatever you want. It does a really good job at suggesting things that it thinks you might be talking about. I'm going to go ahead and dictate Southtown Mall.
Mall. Inserted Southtown Mall.
And we'll hit search.
Southtown Mall / 10,300S.
Okay, so there's the mall and the stop that we want. That's super great.
Search Southtown Mall in contacts.
Okay, you can look in your
Tap to
contacts.
Southtown Mall at 10,300S. Southtown Center. Town Center Drive.
Okay, so as you can hear, there are suggestions, things that are close to what I searched for, but I'm looking for the mall.
Southtown
So
Mall
let's
at 10,003.
click on this one.
From here. Button. To here. Button.
Okay, so that's where we're starting, where we're going. If we keep going to the
Tracking.
right,
Cancel. Route. Button.
we have a route button.
Search your address. Switch origin / destination.
That one's pretty self-explanatory.
Southtown Mall / 10,300S.
That's where we're going.
Leave now.
This here gives you some options. You can leave now, you can set a leave time in the future, or you can set an arrive by time, so you can filter things out depending on what you need.
Options. Button.
And our options here, I'll show you these really quick.
Selected. Segmented options. Back. Button. Front runner U-turn. Enabled.
Basically, this is all of the available public transportation in my area. Yours might be a little bit different, but you can flick through these things and toggle them on and off. So if you want them available in your route, turn them on. If not, shut them off.
Tracks light rail U-turn. In streetcar U-turn. Bus U-turn. Uber.
So pretty self-explanatory. Let's go ahead and hit that back arrow.
Front back. Button. Back. From here. Button.
Once we get back to our main screen here, you can flick around, but again, I've had much better luck exploring by touch. Way at the top right of the screen, you'll find this.
Route. Button. Route.
Now, once we hit that button, we get presented with some options.
Trip leave in 27 minutes. Arrival at 5:12 p.m. Using lines. 218. Trip leave in 1/8. Arrival at 6:16 p.m. Using lines. 218. Trip leave in 57 minutes. Arrival at 5:46 p.m. Using lines. 218.
Okay, so basically you can hear that the 218, that's a bus nearby, has about every 30 minutes something passing, and I can go out there and jump on it whenever I want. Let's go ahead and pick one of these.
Trip leave in 27 minutes. Arrival at 10,000S/255W.
From here, again, flicking, not so good, but if we touch down toward the bottom center of our screen.
Leave 4:34 p.m.
Okay, that's the time I need to leave my house.
Walk 0.2 miles, 5 minutes.
All right.
Take 218 Sandy/South Jordan at 4:38 p.m. Stop 11,400S/1231W. Arrival at 5:12 p.m. Stop Southtown Mall /10,300S.
Okay, so basically, again, I know the numbers probably mean absolutely nothing to you guys, but basically it told me I need to walk almost a quarter mile from my house to a certain bus stop, jump on the 218, and ride it over to the mall. Pretty easy. You can do the same thing that this does with Google Maps. You can plan a route and it'll show you exactly what you need to do. But the one thing that this app can do that Google can't do is widgets. At least not that I know of. Let me show you what I'm talking about. If you touch your status bar,
4:08 p.m.
3-finger swipe down,
Notification set.
we have a pretty handy widget that shows us our nearby lines.
Nearby transit. 11,400S at 930W. 218.
Okay, there's that 218. There's that bus again.
West Jordan City Center Station.
That's the direction that it's heading.
In 3 minutes.
And it's going to go by in 3 minutes.
11,400S at 1,236W. 1,300W.
And these are just some of the bus stops along the route. If you click on one of these, it'll open up Google Maps and show you a nice pretty list of them. This feature right here is what I recommend to those of you that use public transportation. I don't often plan a route using the app. Every now and then I will. But this thing is really great for just standing out there in the city, pull this out, get the up-to-date information, and figure out how long I have until I need to be somewhere to catch my next bus or the next train. This app has really helped me with my independence. So if you're looking for a little Kickstarter, maybe give it a shot. See if it can do the same for you. If you guys have comments or questions, feel free to reach out. I'm at Mike Malarcy on Twitter. Thanks for listening, everybody.
And now, here's an interview with something new. Ihihabilitationally speaking.
Say what? Now I would like to take things down to an intellectual level with an interview here at the TechCove. All right, enough silliness.
Okay.
I mean, imagine my reputation. You know that.
I already have.
We're here with Tom Decker, who has, interestingly enough, created how-to for not dummies on an iPhone.
Well, it's how to feel your way around the screens, because what it is
is a set of diagrams. You can get them in Braille, you can get them in large print, or you can get a version that's both Braille and large print on the same page.
Now, when you say in Braille, the Braille is outlined as far as the diagrams?
What they are is screenshots that depict the most common iOS screens, things you'll see like the lock screen, the home screen, how the settings screen is, how the control centers are, and they even have a separate diagram because obviously the layout of the control center on an iPhone is very different from the layout of the control center on an iPad.
And I hate those differences. I also hate split screens. But this isn't about me. This is about you.
I know, and I hated them too, which is part of why I invented this. Every blind person who ever got an iPhone or an iPad, for the first week or two, learning to relate to touch screens as a visually impaired person resulted in coming very close to flinging the thing off a balcony, crushing it under your heel, etc., etc.
I've never done that on purpose, but go on. This intrigues me. It happened once, but it wasn't on purpose.
Yeah, well, having been a rehabilitation teacher, the iPhone came out, and all of a sudden there was a huge demand at the agency where I was working in Toronto. So I was doing almost 90% iPhone teaching and about 10% actual rehab teaching. And somebody teased me one day and said, "You're not a rehabilitation teacher anymore, you're an ihabilitation." It might have even been me who said it, I don't know. Anyway, it came up in conversation, and out of that came this idea, well, people are having trouble relating to the screens, and most people flick. A lot of people do because they're not quite sure how to do anything else because they don't understand the layout of the screen. So once you teach them to flick, that's all they want to do for the first while because they don't understand what's going on. They think if they touch the wrong place on the screen that it'll do something. You know what? It turned out that there was a company in Toronto back then called Tactile Vision Incorporated, and they had this neat process for making all sorts of diagrams and things that they did. There originally was, I don't know if you ever saw it, but for Windows 95 and Windows 7 and Vista, there was a woman from England named Sarah Morley who wrote these books, and with those books came a great thick thermoform volume with screenshots of all kinds of Windows screens,
Wow,
Microsoft
really?
Word open
That
with
sounds
3
neat.
documents. Huh?
That sounds neat.
It was.
Do you do some of the screenshots as far as the push and pop menus?
We haven't done that yet because I'm sorry, we're too poor to own any devices that do that, so we don't have any direct experience with it yet.
Lesson-wise, how far does it go? By the end of this book, or it sounds like an experience to me if it's in Braille and print, I can feel the diagrams and stuff. Are there videos too?
Let me tell the whole history of the book real quickly so you'll understand. Initially, this started out, I said to these folks in Toronto, I have some ideas, like if people knew what the home screen looked like and that there was a status bar across the top and a dock across the bottom, and if they understood that there was a split screen for settings or just different things that are hard for maybe a non-visual person to get at first, I said to these guys, make me some diagrams, and we did half a dozen diagrams for major things that you need to know about your phone. And I started using them in the lessons and going, okay, you can flick on your phone all you want, but now I want you to flick about, and as you flick about with one hand, I want you to feel around this diagram, and I want you to tell me where on the screen the thing is that you just flick to. I want you to find it on the diagram. And what I noticed is that people looking at these diagrams as they played with their phone started to develop visual memory of where things were on the screen, and they started understanding that they could zip from point A to point B on the phone just like they could zip from point A to point B on the diagram.
So to
I call
speak.
ear-hand coordination. Everybody's always talking about having good eye-hand coordination with voice-over feedback. Why shouldn't we have good ear-hand coordination?
That's true. And technically spatial memory.
Exactly.
Who done it, by Jove?
Oh my! Well, you know why we use we need to use an embosser that has that can handle cut sheets. Because I'll tell you, originally, these books were done, and we actually sold about 900 of them through National Braille Press a while ago.
Wow.
That was for iOS 6 and iOS 7. But then we moved, and the company we worked with changed hands, and a whole bunch of stuff happened. And, you know, when you're working with a company to produce this stuff, you need to be able to sit down beside them, and that couldn't work anymore when they moved to Ottawa and we moved to Victoria. We sort of opposite-ended the country, and that was that. So we decided, let's make our own. So my dear partner, who is very brilliant, I said, we're going to buy an Everest D4 embosser, and we're going to buy Tactile View software, which is the tactile graphic software, and we're going to get duct spray. We're going to do this ourselves. He said, okay, if you think we can do it, I'll figure it out. And he figured out how to work this. I know nothing about producing this stuff by myself. Somebody else has to do it.
So
I
a
just think
side
about
person is doing all of this?
Yes.
Wow, that's cool. Can I have one, please?
Now, what we did, I said, you know, we did an iOS 8 book. And it didn't sell very well through National Braille Press, but it was Braille only, and we gave it some silly name like Feelogram.
There's one blind person who listens to NPR who's going to go out and buy that book because you've disturbed them with that title.
Probably. So anyway, it was a marketing error, but you know what? One of the things in entrepreneurialism is instead of getting freaked out by your mistakes, you learn from them, and you build on it. So we said, okay, no more just feel and see. So all the videos on the website are listed under a link called Old Videos, and they are the feel and see iOS 8 videos, but they pretty much apply to iOS 9, and they're still excellent teaching tools. And when we have time, we will definitely be working on a new set. Right now there are 29 videos. There's one for each diagram in the old book telling you how to teach it, how to use it. And, of course, it's all hooked up with voiceover so that
Nice.
by the time you listen to the video, hear what the voiceover is doing on the video, and feel the diagrams, you really do have a total multimedia experience going on for learning. On www.ihabilitation.com.
Or you could say the I in yourself, because you don't have to wait for rehab to come.
Well, you know, because I used to be a rehab teacher, one of my objectives for the future is if we really get this going and I have extra money to hire other people to help and work and do videos, I'm actually thinking of changing that whole website to ihabilitation, as in I can help myself, and doing a lot more independent living skill stuff, and then moving the whole book
With
thing
your
over
iPhone.
to the feelandsee.com site.
Huh.
And www.feelnc, like FEELNSEE.com is the link where you can go right to the shopping cart. You can get the three versions, the tactile, the dual mode version, the tactile and Braille, is $30. The Braille-only version is $25, and we do a large print-only version for $20, and you may wonder why, but this has been suggested by the folks at the Canadian Helen Keller Centre in Toronto, and they like it because they have a lot of deaf-blind people who are quite low vision, and they can't see the screen of their iPhone, but they can look at these diagrams. It's a lot faster than sitting there trying to sign it and explain it.
Feelandsee.com. That was very clever of you, just on the border of R-rated.
Okay, well, there's a contact link on the website, or tom@ihabilitation.ca. So you can get the website by .com or .ca, but tom@ihabilitation.ca. There's an iHabilitation Canada page on Facebook. You can actually look up iHabilitation on Skype and get us that way. I'm on LinkedIn.
I'm actually thinking about getting the dual one because that would be a good teaching tool for me if I'm teaching somebody who's visually impaired.
Well, that's precisely why it was invented, and I'm sure that you know Braille. I mean, the whole point is...
I know of it.
The point is that's precisely why we invented the dual mode, because now any Apple Store trainer, any sighted friend, relative, colleague, anybody who gets this book in their paws, a sighted person can go around with this book and help blind people learn to use their iPhones, literally.
Or reverse.
Yep, exactly. I've actually turned on voiceover on sighted people's phones and started showing them how to use voiceover. And I know sighted people who now actually have voiceover on some of the time when they make sure that they don't touch things by accident. Another thing I really want to promote is the whole iPhone eyes free thing, because with universal design, everything can work in any direction for anybody. And imagine how many sighted people would think it was cool to develop this sixth sense where they had a set of Aftershock headphones on. They could still hear everybody talking to them. They got their Aftershock headphones on, and they know how to use voiceover, so their phone's in their pocket. So here's a sighted person. Any way they want to use their phone or connect with the internet without anybody knowing it. I mean, this is something they should be teaching in the military. Don't they teach them all kinds of cool stuff, how to function at night without seeing and this sort of thing? Enter voiceover. So I think the whole idea is that voiceover has the potential to be a much more mainstream product than people realize.
Wow, that sounds cool. I know Sean's ordered a Braille and print book already.
Hey, where's Sean at anyway?
He is talking with Braille. But that's another show for another time.
Yeah, time to shut her down.
Thanks for listening to today's Tech Cove. We hope you've enjoyed today's program. Tune in again next week at the same time for another edition with Sean Hosbury.
Next week, guys, I will have an exclusive interview with the creators of Braille.